Hello, everyone, again. Now we welcome Gilles Petrov, President of OMEP France and OMEP representative to UNESCO. Gilles has an extensive background in public education in France, having worked as a teacher, inspector, and curriculum developer. In his presentation, he will address pedagogy and professionalism in the digital era, emphasizing the importance of supporting educators for ethical and inclusive early childhood education practices. Welcome, Gilles.
Thank you. Thank you, Camilla. Thank you to everyone to be there, to Ed Heroes for offering OMEP this opportunity, and to Mercedes Mayol, OMEP's president, for inviting me to take part in this forum. The strong and quick evolution of digital technology in our societies has a direct impact on the education of young children. After seeking to identify these changes, the aim will be to define possible consequences for formal education practice, educator-teacher training, and public policy. What are the new changes in early childhood education? Two major developments can have a direct impact on the education of young children. On the one hand, the device's miniaturization, with smartphone widespread use becoming an individual and nomadic object, easily accessible to very young children at any time and in any place. Secondly, the arrival of artificial intelligence challenging our relationships with the world and with knowledge, having possible consequences on the education of young children, especially for educational products. The omnipresence of individual digital technologies is now everywhere. The use of digital technologies by adults is now obvious everywhere. Public transport, supermarkets, with absurd parents finding it harder to play their role as intermediaries between their children and the surrounding reality, not helping them sufficiently to decipher the world and at the same time to exist as individuals. Supposedly reassuring content for children, education leads to claims of use. Is for children, they say. And it can conduct to the well-known phenomenon of the object becoming the guardian, to a de facto delegation reducing interaction. Children direct contact with everyday technological novelties from an early age and with no other control by parents than launching a program has already been denounced for television. But then, these were a priori collective uses with no mobility of the object and easy enough to control. A break with the experience of authentic human interaction could isolate the child, entailing a risk of confinement in an absence of relationship to reality in a world without contradiction. It also limits language interaction with direct consequences for the development of language skills. Today, digitalization is a public health issue and a topic for political debate. It's widely accepted that protecting children nowadays also involves regulating their access to screens. A very recently published study conducted by the French Ministry of Education on a panel of 35,000 kindergarten children aged 3 to 4 confirms the urgent need to think about screen access. 75% of kindergarten pupils watch or play on screens. 45% have at least one dedicated digital access point, and 15% on their own tablet. One child in two has a regular access to screen to watch, or one intend to play. Among the children of unskilled workers, 21% own a tablet, compared with 7% of the children of managers or company directors. With equivalent socio-demographic characteristics, mother's diploma, migrant background, family structures and size, children are regularly playing on screen on school days, have language score of 22 standards deviation points lower, 40 points lower in maths, and 12 points lower in cross-curricular skills. However, the scores of pupils who regularly play on screen outside school days are higher than those of pupils who never or almost never play. As Weber Bost, a well-known neuroscientist, writes, controlled and supervised use of screen would be associated with more developed perceptual, attentional, and cognitive abilities, as well as better academic skills in school-aged children. So, not so bad. The second topic is the illusions of A. The recent and dazzling development of artificial intelligence raises fundamental questions about the individual relationships to reality, particularly because of two of its core characteristics. First, the affirmation of a false I, distorts response as if it were a person. Hidden behind a self-relating instant of speech, I, AI is nonetheless a protean fiction, a patchwork that is sometimes incoherent, always inconsistent. It's essential to resist the temptation of personification, the idea of attributing human qualities to snippets of information and thoughts gathered without human thickness, to a patchwork that can only be an illusion of humanity that can demonstrate any intentionality or maintain relationships with others or feel any kind of sentiment or being responsible for anything. It's also a reality without experience. The answers provided by AI are built by collecting statistically processing and coordinating information by algorithm without any relationship with reality even being considered. Fake news is treated in the same way as genuine information. The more or less coherent composite fictions produced by AI expose us to the danger of giving in to the plausible. The statements have already been made. It's a possible discourse, but there is nothing to say that it can apply to the situation and really answer the question. Disappointment with the answers is widespread and all in all reassuring. Minimum precaution must be taken, going back to sources if possible, and above all, critical thinking is more necessary than ever. This digital world, cut off from reality, necessarily ignores the relevance of its answers, proposing possibilities that aren't real at all. For the individual, the subject in the world, in French, le réel, c'est quand on se cogne. The real is when you bump into it, as Lacan puts it out. Outside any link with the reality, there is no longer any obstacle to the impossible. Today, dialogue with an A is as primarily a matter of adults, but it can also already be present in fiction without being aware, in possible dialogues, like those used in language teaching, fictitious, A-generated dialogue. These are then stories without dilemmas or without any mystery than a variant of already existing scenarios with conventional characters and no human depth. Educators must be vigilant in considering the social practices affecting the children's care and adapting their own professional practices. What practices should be favored at school or education center? Digital education for young children is all about protecting children from harmful uses of digital technology and, above all, preparing them to thrive in increasingly digitalized societies. Some of the fundamental principles of early childhood education are well recognized. The essential role of individual experience in learning, and the need to confront children with concrete situations that appeal to their sensitivity and personal commitment. Children's rights are a highly relevant guide for creating meaning and designing activity. Just some example. We need to recognize each child as an individual, the right of an identity, it could be offered an facial recognition in the classroom, name displays, personal objects, personal dialogues with adults, and so on. Celebration, valorization with the group as audience, showing that everyone is one in turn. The right to know one's parents, giving parents a recognized place in the school, develop collective digital communication practices with parents, for example, digital life notebooks. The right to expression, organize times to solicit speech collectively or individually, recognize the validity of the child's perception and expression, promote interaction to comment on to help interpret the word, express reality, make a co-reading of the word. We need to foster the ability to recognize the existence of others, knowing sometimes the egocentric period of the child, focus on peer relationships in free and organized play, establish rules for groups exchanges through dialogue, give an essential place to fiction, to the notion of story, of character, and all that goes with characteristic history. We have to open child's eye to his or her environment diversity. School or education environment is the first experience of the peer group outside the family, where other realities exchange are at work. The right to play, for waste, but also for learning, constructing and living fiction, free play, symbolic play, much use symbolic play, with or without any digital device. Fight against discrimination, adopting appropriate attitudes with children, especially in the classroom. Present fiction with positive heroes of all colors, genders, religions, social situations. Use fiction to evoke situations that are formed from clichés, yes, commonplace for children, being raised by others, siblings with disabilities, separation. The right to health and safety, ensuring safety while conducting a pedagogical reflection on risk-taking in the school environment. And most of us, most of all, encourage critical thinking. Practice exchanging views in the child on the realities of the environment. Critical thinking, reading of album, of picture books. We have a wonderful article by Lynette Mo C. Cheng, recently published in International Journal of Early Childhood, how to learn and to interpret images, to compare them with the text. It's a very interesting word. Or promoting philosophical debate. We could say the word of Edris Chirute, who also a UNESCO chair. Young children are able to reflect on existential questions, friendship, death, justice, through stories and structural exchanges. Her work aims to develop critical thinking, listening and reasoning skills from an early age. And we need at least raising awareness of the limits of digital technology. Always propose situations led by the educator to avoid any risk of non-regulation of emotions or exposure to inappropriate content. Experience and comment on situations with children and then distinguish digital uses, maintaining a real dialogue with people known from a distance, watching cartoon or film action, getting information, documentaries, and so on. Make parents aware of the importance of direct relationships with their children and the dangers of isolation linked to the children's natural fascination with digital technology. Prohibit all use before the age of 3, allowed. Promote direct joint activities, communication with family and friends, or commented activity, digital books, and exclude all unsupervised individual use up to the age of 8 or 9. How can we train educators and teachers? Fundamentals must remain the same, developmental psychology and so on. However, digital technology must be seen as a possible tool without replacing or even limiting direct personal relationships, which are the foundation or the goal of all education. Unorganized training has to inform educators about the nature of the risk incurred by children in the event of uncontrolled digital access, to learn working with digital technology, taking digital technology into account in relation with parents to keep them informed and help build a community. Use of a media application, create and manage limited access networks, information construction and risk analysis before distribution, avoid social networks as information is distributed without any possible control, learn to use digital resources in the classroom, collective presentation, equipment, video projector of interactive whiteboards, dedicated applications such as Bookily, or scans of picture books that children can find in the classroom, use of tablets for presentation sessions in small groups, also using some general application to create your own resources, photos, presentation, video recordings, editing, training in digital administrative management and standards application depending on each education system. When we have to learn to use AI, checking sources, cross-referencing with a search engine, questioning results in relation to reality, the plausibility and the truth, being aware of cultural biases in response stereotypes, gender, race, and viable objects, make privacy, don't share personal data, don't entrust AI with queries. Rights of intellectual property, reproduction and distribution of context, book, press, images, or music. And we have to learn to move from fascination to some distrust, to some evaluation of what the tool can actually do. What public policy for digital technology in the early childhood sector? An appropriate use for early childhood has to be supported by public policy. Do we need regulation by law? The actions are very complex and time-consuming from a legal point of view, difficult to calibrate in relation to technical developments, and difficult to implement with powerful and sometimes uncooperative players in the sector. However, regulation is needed to alert the public and encourage moderation of use by children. Prohibition or limitation actions in educational environments have to be carried out for teenagers in middle school. But we have to define the place of digital technology in early childhood. Take into account the political contribution of digital technology in education settings to prepare children for individual use later by recognizing children's capacity for appreciation, fostering attitudes to develop critical thinking skills, using collectively adapted digital media or in small groups with adult supervision, participating in the creation of an educational community by sharing information with parents in both directions. Policies have also to introduce plans to develop access to digital education for the youngest children in order to reduce the digital divide. Equip classrooms with collective equipment, equip teachers, educators for their preparation, pedagogical work and communication with families, offer digitalization of additional content, children's album, still images of very short sequences for retelling commentary, and don't forget training. In conclusion, we have to say that digital technology is having a deep influence on our societies, and we need to try and understand it to better prepare our children to become free and enlightened citizens in their community in the world. The recent history of new technology in education let us think that teachers take the best when they can use in their professional in practice. But this is a new page, a huge undertaking, and we must be active and vigilant. Thank you.
Thank you, Shields. Thank you for your enriching presentation, and we learned a lot. And now our final speaker is Javiera Laume Molfino, board member of OMEP Uruguay and coordinator of the Early Childhood Education area at the National Directorate of Education in Uruguay Ministry of Education and Culture. Javier will share the Uruguayan experience of Plan Ceibal, a national initiative that integrates technology into early childhood education with a strong pedagogical and right-based approach. He will explore how public policy can shape ethical and sustainable digital inclusion for young children. Over to you, Javier.
My name is Javier Aliaume. I'm from OMEP, Uruguay, as Camila told. Today, I want to share some aspects of a national experience that seeks to answer a critical question. How can we ensure that technology integration in early childhood education strengthens learning rather than displacing it? I will do so throughout the lens of Plan Ceibal, Uruguayan's national strategy for digital equity, and particularly its extensions into early childhood education with the initiative uh, Un Ceibal en cada jardín, one Ceibal in each early childhood center education. Ceibal is the name of the national flower, the national tree, launched in 2011. Well, first of all, Uruguay is a little country in South America, a very little country with a population of 3.3 millions. We have around 47,000 children born in the last decade, but since the last 10 years, we have a decrease in the borns. We are nowadays we have only 32,000 borns per year. Uh, Kindergarten is compulsory from the age of 4 years, and the access at the age of 3 has been expanded significantly over the last decade. The integration of a child from 2 years age, it's pretty universalized. Sorry. Well, in 2007, Uruguay became the first country in the world to launch a nationwide one-to-one laptop policy, Plan Ceibal, based on the OLPC model. But Plan Ceibal involved for beyond device distribution. It became comprehensive public policy aimed to democratization knowledge, promoting digital citizenship, and transforming teaching and learning in public education. Initially implemented in primary education, it later expanded to secondary and in 2011 reached early childhood settings, starting from 4 and 5 years old. Well, the challenge in early childhood was not technological, it was pedagogical. How do we introduce digital tools in a stage of life where play, movement, and interaction are central? Uh, the policy Un Ceibal en el Jardín, one Ceibal in each center, was the result of collaboration between the National Inspectorate for Early Childhood and Plan Ceibal. This initiative they didn't aim to deliver individual devices to young children. Instead, it proposed reusing laptops from the primary schools and later incorporating tablets to create digital learning environments, learning corners, workshops, and collective projects. Teachers played a leading role in adapting these tools to their pedagogical practices, responding to the realities of each school and community. By 2014, the initiative had reached over 200 kindergartens across the country. Well, from the outset, this initiative rejected instrumental or isolated usage of technology. Instead, it promoted guided, meaningful, and socially embedded interactions. Children explored photography, storytelling, drawing on digital images, building models of their neighborhoods, and representing everyday experiences, often involving families and communities, as you can see in the some pictures. Teachers were not more facilitators. They were designers of learning environments. Integrating digital tools are part of a broader repertoire that included books, natural materials, and physical exploration. Technology was a means, not an end. A mean, not an end. It supported imagination, collaboration, and expression, and perhaps more importantly, children and teachers learning together. What's inside can these experiences offer to global effort toward sustainable digital education? First, access alone does not guarantee equity. Equitable digital inclusion in early childhood requires contextual, relational, and developmentally appropriate practices. Second, professional development is essential. Teachers need time, tools, and trust to appropriate technologies and integrate them meaningfully. Third, territorial adaptation matters. The initiative was built from the ground up throughout local projects, not top-down programs. And finally, children are rights holders in digital spaces. This is fully aligned with General Commitment Number 25 on children's rights in digital environment, which calls for technology use that supports protection, participation, and development. Digital policy must be rooted in ethics, pedagogy, and justice. Technology in early childhood education should never be neutral. It must be shaped by care, pedagogy, and rights. The Uruguayan case shows that even in the earliest stage of life, it's possible to build inclusive, context-sensitive, and sustainable digital education policies. Uh, when those policies center on education, children, and communities. Let us move forward with a shared commitment to build digital futures for young children based not only on control on consumption, but on imagination, empathy, and equity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Javier. Thank you for this final presentation. Thank you for the closing message. And thank you to all of our speakers for your thoughtful and inspiring words and thoughts, for sharing your knowledge and perspectives. Today, we heard diverse and powerful reflections on the urgent need to shape digital education policies that are sustainable, inclusive, and deeply human. We were reminded that children's rights must always guide our decisions, and that educators play a central role in making digital learning meaningful, ethical, and empowering. Technology should be used to enhance, not replace, human connection. Early childhood policies must ensure both access and protection, as you said, especially in these formative years. But access alone is not enough. Policies must guarantee that technology use is developmentally appropriate, culturally responsive, and always aligned with the best interest of every child. We also reaffirm that teachers are key agents of transformation. Public policy must support them through continuous training, proper resources, and the time and space to build ethical, creative, and critical digital practices. Finally, we must place equity at the core of the digital agenda. Connectivity, infrastructure, and content must be accessible to all, regardless of geography, language, or socioeconomic background, so we do not reproduce or deepen existing inequalities. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, everyone. Let's keep working together across sectors, community, and borders to build education policies rooted in care, justice, and equity for all children from the very start. Thank you very much.